What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Jai back with another banger. Whew. Today's episode is going to be pretty serious, more direct. It's real. It's something almost everybody deals with, but almost nobody talks about it, honestly. And that's anxiety. Not the cute, I'm stressed version. I mean, the real thing. The overthinking, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, the pressure to be okay even when you're not. And I want you to have this conversation one on one, just me and you. No panel, no guests, just straightforward honesty. Because sometimes the conversations we avoid are the ones we need the most. So, wherever you're listening from, your car, your room, your job, your gym, I want you to breathe for a second. You're safe here. You're seen here. And you're not alone. So let's talk. What anxiety looks like for me, I want to start with myself because I'm not above this conversation at all. For me, anxiety doesn't always show up as fear. Sometimes it shows up as pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to work, pressure to be strong, pressure to be the one who has it together. Sometimes it shows up as silence. I get quiet, I get distant, not because I don't care, but because my mind is loud. My mind is spinning. And sometimes it shows up as overthinking. I'll replay a conversation 10 times. I'll question decisions I already made. I'll even imagine outcomes that haven't even happened. And the wild part is, I didn't always know that that was anxiety. I thought it was just me. But let me ask you something, and you don't have to answer out loud. What does anxiety look like for you? Does it make you shut down? Does it make you overwork? Does it make you isolate? Does it make you feel like you're never doing enough? Because anxiety has 1,000 faces, and most of them look very normal. Let's get into the anxiety we don't admit, right? Especially if you grew up in a household where emotions weren't allowed, especially if you were the strong friend, especially if you're the one everybody calls when they need something. You learn to hide your anxiety like it's a secret. You learn to smile through it. You learn to say, I'm good, even when your chest is tight. And the crazy part is, people think you're strong because you don't break. But the honest to God truth is, you don't break because you don't feel safe enough to. And a lot of us grew up in environments where fear wasn't allowed, where vulnerability wasn't allowed, where saying, I'm overwhelmed wasn't allowed. So now we're adults trying to process emotions we were never taught how to feel. And that's not weakness, that's survival. Now let's be real. Social media made anxiety a lifestyle. You're not just living life anymore, you're performing it, you're curating it, you're comparing it. You're scrolling through highlight reels while judging your behind the scenes. And then you wonder why you feel behind, why you feel inadequate, why you feel like you're not doing enough. But think about it. Nobody posts their panic attacks. Nobody posts the nights that they cried. Nobody posts the days that they felt like a failure. So you're comparing your life to someone else's filtered one. And that creates a pressure that nobody talks about. Let me say this loud and clear. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not less than. You're just human. Now, let's get into relationship anxiety. Because anxiety doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your connections. So it may show up when you overthink a text. It shows up when you assume the worst. It shows up when you fear abandonment. It shows up when you sabotage something good because you're scared it won't last. And here's the truth. Sometimes anxiety isn't saying, I don't trust you. Sometimes it's saying, I don't trust that I'm enough. And anxiety will have you writing whole movies in your head with no evidence. You'll be like, they didn't text back, they must be mad. Meanwhile, their phone is probably dead. Anxiety makes you react to things that aren't even happening. And that's why awareness matters. Not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. So let's talk about the people who look like they have it all together. The achievers, the grinders, the perfectionists, the ones who get praised for being disciplined but are actually running on panic. High functioning anxiety is dangerous because people applaud it. They don't see the cost. They don't see the burnout. They don't see the nights you can't sleep because your brain won't shut up. You look strong on the outside, but exhausted as hell on the inside. You look productive, but you're actually very overwhelmed. You look confident, but you're actually scared of failing. And the hardest part, people don't check on you because they assume you're good. But even the strong need support. Even the strong needs rest. Even the strong needs softness. So let's talk faith for a minute. A lot of us grew up hearing, just pray about it. And yes, prayer is powerful, don't get me wrong. But anxiety doesn't always disappear just because you prayed once. And that doesn't mean you don't trust God. It just means that you're human. Faith doesn't mean you never feel fear. Faith means you move through fear. Faith means you trust God even when your chest is tight, even when your thoughts are loud, and even when you don't feel strong. God never asked us to be fearless. He asked us to trust Him while we're scared. And sometimes the most spiritual thing to do is breathe, slow down, rest, and let God meet you where you are. I want to share what anxiety has taught me. It taught me boundaries. It taught me self-awareness. It taught me patience. It taught me humility. It taught me to ask for help. It taught me to slow down. It taught me to trust God deeper. Anxiety doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And the more we talk about it, the less power it has over us. So if you're listening to this specific segment and you've been carrying something heavy, hear me clearly. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're growing. So you got to take care of your mind, take care of your heart, and take care of your peace. Now, I want to get into depression. Not just the clinical definition, not just the sadness people think it is, but the real thing. The heaviness, the numbness, the silence, the days you don't feel like getting out of bed, the moments you feel disconnected from everything, even yourself. And I want to have this conversation one-on-one again, just me and you, because depression doesn't look like tears. Sometimes it looks like nothing. Depression isn't just sadness. And people misconstrue that specific statement because they don't understand that it's also emptiness, fatigue, disconnection, and it's that feeling like you're underwater while the world keeps moving. Sometimes it's loud, full of thoughts you can't escape, and sometimes it's quiet, like your mind just shuts down. And here's the wild part. You can be smiling, you can be working, you can be posting on social media, and still be depressed. Because depression doesn't always show up in ways people recognize. It hides, it masks, it performs. And if you've ever felt that, I see you. So let's talk about the depression we hide, especially in communities where strength is survival, especially among men, especially among Black men, especially among people who were taught to just push through. You learn to function while hurting. You learn to smile while sinking. You learn to say, I'm good, when you're anything but. And the world applauds your strength but never asks about your pain. So let me say this clearly. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to perform peace. And you don't have to fake joy. Depression doesn't just affect you, it affects how you connect. It makes you pull away. It makes you question your worth. It makes you feel like a burden. You start thinking, they'd be better off without me. They don't really care. If I disappear, nobody would notice. And that's the lie depression tells. It isolates you. It convinces you that your presence doesn't matter. But let me remind you, you're not a burden, you're a blessing, even when you're struggling. So let's talk about the people who look fine. The ones who show up, the ones who smile, the ones who get things done. The ones who say, I'm just tired, when they're actually drowning. High functioning depression is real and it's dangerous because nobody checks on you, nobody asks how you're really doing, and nobody sees the cost of your performance. You're praised for your productivity, but nobody sees your pain, and that's why this conversation matters. Because a lot of people feel guilty for being depressed while believing in God, they think, if I only had more faith, I wouldn't feel this way. God must be disappointed in me. But let me tell you something. Faith doesn't cancel feelings. Faith carries you through them. Even Jesus wept. Even the prophets got tired. Even spiritual giants had moments of despair. God doesn't shame your sadness. He meets you in it. He walks with you through it. He doesn't ask you to pretend. He asks you to trust him. So now let's talk about how culture shapes our understanding of depression. In some communities, depression is seen as weakness. Point blank period. In others, it's seen as laziness. In some families, it's never even named. You're told to man up. You're told to pray harder or even get over it. But healing starts with honesty. And honesty starts with naming what hurts. You can't heal what you won't admit. And you can't grow through what you won't face. And you don't have to face it alone. So this is what depression has taught me. It taught me to slow down. It taught me to ask for help, to stop performing, to rest, listen to my body, lean on God. And it's also taught me that healing isn't linear, but it's possible. Depression doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And the more we talk about it, the less power it has over us. So if you're listening to this part of the segment and you've been carrying something heavy, hear me clearly. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're not forgotten. You are loved and you are growing. So another thing I want to talk about is identity crisis. That moment when you look in the mirror and don't even recognize yourself. When your roles change. When your beliefs shift. When your environment evolves and you're left asking, who am I now? This episode is for the people who feel like they're in between versions, not who they used to be, not yet who they're becoming. Right? So let's start with the basics. An identity crisis isn't just confusion. It's disorientation. It's emotional vertigo. It's feeling like your foundation cracked and you're trying to rebuild without a blueprint. It can be triggered by a breakup, career shift, a spiritual awakening, a loss, a move, a trauma, or even just growth. And suddenly, the things that used to define you don't fit anymore. You start asking, am I still me? Was I ever me? Who do I want to be now? So with that being said, let's talk about roles. Because a lot of us confuse identity with responsibility. We think, I'm the provider, I'm the strong one, I'm the fixer, I'm the funny one, I'm the one who always shows up. But what happens when you don't want to be that anymore? What happens when that role starts to feel like a cage? You start feeling guilty for changing. You start feeling selfish for growing, and you start feeling lost because your identity was built around what you do, not who you are. And that's the crisis. So because identity crisis hit different when you're navigating multiple worlds, you might be black in a white space, spiritual in a secular space, creative in a corporate space, introverted in a loud space. And you start code switching. You start adapting. You start performing until you don't know which version is real. And the question becomes, am I being authentic or just surviving. That's not weakness. That's just adaptation. But adaptation without reflection leads to disconnection. So, because identity isn't just about personality, it's about purpose. And when your purpose feels unclear, your identity starts to wobble. You start asking, what does God say about me? Am I living in alignment? Am I chasing approval or walking in calling? And here's the truth. God doesn't just love who you are, he loves who you're becoming. Your identity isn't static. It's spiritual, it's evolving, and it's sacred. And sometimes the crisis is actually a calling. Identity crises often come with mourning. When growth feels like loss. You mourn the old you mourn the relationships that don't fit anymore. You mourn the dreams that no longer excite you. You even mourn the version of you that was comfortable even if it wasn't healthy. And that's okay. Because growth feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You're not broken. You're shedding. You're not lost. You're evolving. So how do you rebuild? You start by asking better questions. What values matter to me now? What brings me peace? What makes me feel alive? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What does alignment look like for me? You stop chasing labels. You stop performing. You start chasing truth, and you start becoming. And you give yourself permission to change. So, I want to share what identity crisis taught me. It taught me to stop performing. It taught me to listen to my soul. It taught me to trust God more than titles. It taught me that change isn't betrayal, it's growth. It taught me that peace is a compass and that I'm allowed to evolve. So, if you're in the middle of an identity crisis, hear me out. You're not crazy. You're not broken. And you're not behind. You're becoming. And becoming is sacred. I want to speak to the people who've been walking with me through this podcast journey. So today we talked about anxiety, the battle nobody sees. We talked about depression, the weight we don't talk about, and we talked about identity crisis, the question that haunts us when everything shifts. And if you've been listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart, then you know this wasn't just content. This was a mirror. This was a lifeline. This was a moment to say, you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not too far gone. Because anxiety doesn't mean you're weak. Depression doesn't mean you're failing. And an identity crisis doesn't mean you're lost forever. It means you're human. It means you're growing. It means you're becoming. And becoming is messy. Becoming is sacred. And becoming is holy ground. Let me say this. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to ask for help. And you are allowed to not have it all figured out. Because healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. It's a conversation. It's a prayer whispered in the dark. It's a breath you didn't think you'd take. It's also a moment of clarity in the middle of the chaos. And if you're in the middle of it, in the middle of the panic, the sadness, and the confusion, I want you to know you're still worthy, you're still loved, and you're still here. God hasn't forgotten about you. I haven't forgotten about you. Your story isn't over. Your peace isn't gone. It's just buried under all this noise. So breathe. Slow down. Let go of the pressure to perform. Let go of the guilt for feeling. Let go of the shame of struggling. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't even have to be fearless to be faithful. And you don't have to be strong to be seen. You just have to be honest, present, and willing to heal. And healing starts here, in this space, in this moment, in this breath. So, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for being brave enough to feel. So until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your heart, and take care of your peace. And never forget, you are becoming. And becoming is beautiful. It's your boy Jai. Y'all have a great day. Peace.